Today it's eyes versus ears, the value of licks and why tab is ruining your playing. Hello and welcome to another video with me, Elmo Karjalainen, and it's good to have you along. Today is part 3 of how I learned to play guitar and what lessons that can give you, hopefully. So, on this channel, I try to help and inspire others so that they in turn can help and inspire others. So please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. I have 3 more of these, how I learned to play guitar, coming up. If you want to check out the previous ones, they're linked in the description. In the last 2 videos I talked a bit about exercises and then I talked about scales and modes, and now let's start off with licks before we get into eyes and ears and tab. So eventually I switched from practicing exercises and scales to practicing licks. Now I said this before, but these are not kind of in sequence, they overlap a bit, but I gradually went more towards licks. I especially remember watching Yngwie Malmsteen's REH instructional video and picking up lots of licks there, and that was really where I really started to concentrate on licks, because that was also the moment when I started improvising more and where I realized that licks help build your musical vocabulary, and the bigger your vocabulary is, the more you can say in your solos. So the more licks you know, it's really better. I mean, exercises are great for technique, and scales are great as a kind of framework, but it's a bit like grammar in language. It's just framework. What you do with that framework is you use words, you string sentences together, and you can be creative with language. So I started learning more licks, and that definitely helped my playing quite a lot. Plus it kept me interested, because I was getting a bit bored with just the exercises and the scales. So at some point, try learning a lot of licks. Or songs, that's also a good thing. But how you learn them is really even more important, I would say. Because think about it. I drew out all the scales on a paper and memorized the scales visually. And that's fine. But how does music enter us? It enters us through our ears, and it exits us, in the case of us guitar players, through our fingers. But there's a constant kind of loop going on between what we play, what we hear ourselves playing in relation to the background, and that's why having good ears is so important. Some people sight read, and if you want to sight read everything, go right ahead. Now I'm talking more about improvising here and doing stuff without sight reading. Sight reading is great, but for me, I do stuff without the sight reading. And this is where tab comes in. Tab is brilliant. I mean, I still use tab a lot, especially if I'm in a hurry. Let's say, if I'm trying to learn hybrid picking, at least in the beginning I will be using tab. But practicing your ears, it comes along. I remember when I was going through that phase of transitioning into actually transcribing stuff, it was back in the day where there just weren't tab for songs. I wanted to learn, it was a David Lee Roth song, I forget, Big Trouble, the guitar solo to that. And that was really ambitious, because I had no kind of, it was impossible. No way would I learn that. But I tried. I never did learn that song, but it was very good for my ears. And I remember learning the 7th sign by Yngwie Malmsteen, so that I played the main riff in A minor for some reason. It kind of works over E minor. And I played it in A minor for quite a while before I realized this is in E minor actually. And the rest of the song is in E minor, yeah, but I didn't think too much of it. Again, I'm glad I didn't play that song live because people would have been like, what's going on here? But it was beneficial to my ears to actually practice that stuff. It took a while longer to get it right, but nowadays I'm really reaping the benefits of that because I can even take complex songs, and if I really put my mind to it, I can pick up anything. And that means I've done huge amounts of gigs, especially on cruise ships here in Finland, where we play 5 sets a day. I have absolutely no sheet music. I just follow the bass. It's brilliant. We can do anything. As long as I've heard the song, I'll get it thereabouts the first time. The second time we play it, even closer. Third time, if it's nothing weird, it'll be just spot on. But it's been a huge help because I can jump in for anyone. One gig I remember was we played on the boats, and there was another band after us, and they did one set, and then their singer came and looked me up and asked, can you come play with us, because our guitar player is so ill that he can't stand anymore. He had such a fever, it was like 40. He had such a fever that he couldn't play. So I played a couple of sets with them, and no trouble at all. They had no sheet music either. Now the great thing about this is that when you have better ears, you're better able to evaluate yourself. Being able to evaluate yourself is so important. I mean, measuring progress in itself is extremely important, and it's really easy with exercises. For instance, if you want to measure speed, you can just use a metronome. But how do you measure progress when you're playing? Because it's not objective. You might be looking for a certain something. A good tip is to record yourself, and record yourself, let's say, once or twice a week, and after a while you go back to the first recordings that you did, listen to those, compare it to the newer ones, and hey, there's been actual progress here. And if you're going in a weird direction, you can maybe change that. But even just while you're playing, being able to on the spot evaluate if you're in tune, for instance, or whatever. If you've practiced learning licks, learning songs by transcribing them, you'll have a head start compared to the people who just use tab. Now, I'm not trying to say that tab is the beginning of all evil. It certainly isn't. And it's a great tool. But be sure to use your ears, because they're just like any other muscle, in that if you don't use them, they'll just wither away. Not your actual earlobes. You get the point. So, eyes versus ears. Ears are definitely more important. I can think of a few blind musicians. Can't think of too many deaf musicians. Beethoven springs to mind. But he went deaf towards the end of his career. You need your ears to be as good as possible. So work on those. Yes, so if you want to watch more of my lessons, there's a playlist here somewhere. There's also a playlist with my music. Please check that out. Like if you liked the video. Comment, let me know what you thought. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell notification thing. And join me on Patreon, because you get access to my Guitar Academy, and you get all of my music and a bunch of exclusives, and you can even take that stuff for free. There's a link in the description. I hope you have a nice day. Take care. See you. Bye.